I stood outside the grand entrance of the Carter Plaza Hotel, my hotel. The building loomed above me, a breathtaking piece of architecture wrapped in sleek glass and pride. I had designed every curve, every light, every detail of that place with the love most people reserve for their children. And yet, I was standing outside it like a beggar. Not because I couldn't walk in, but because of who stood blocking the doors. Seriously? My sister Natalie sneered, arms folded tightly, her designer sunglasses barely hiding the contempt in her eyes. Are you lost, Isabella? Because this place is way out of your price range. Behind her, my mother, our mother, stood silent for a second. Then she leaned in toward Natalie and whispered, loudly enough for me to hear, "Why is she even here? She's going to embarrass us. Embarrass us." That word split something inside me, like I was a stain on the family name, like I hadn't bled for years building what they thought was a stranger's empire. I had come in jeans and a simple black blouse, hair in a loose bun, no makeup. I wasn't here to impress anyone. I had only planned to stop by the lobby, maybe see how things were running, and then head to the penthouse suite to get ready for my private investor dinner. But apparently, that was too much for Natalie and my mother to stomach. Natalie planted herself in front of the glass doors like a self-appointed gatekeeper. She didn't recognize the irony. "You don't belong here," she said with a smirk. "This is for actual guests." I blinked. Then I smiled, just faintly because I knew something she didn't. Actually, I knew a lot of things she didn't, like the fact that the ownership papers for the Carter Plaza Hotel bore one name and one name only, mine. That the security system had my face coded into every camera. That the man currently watching the altercation from inside, the tall, well-dressed man with the earpiece, was my head of security. I saw him lift a hand toward his ear, and I let him wait. Because I wasn't ready yet. I needed to hear it. I needed to hear what they truly thought. "You know," Natalie continued, brushing invisible lint off her blouse, "this is what you've always done. Show up, hoping someone will throw you scraps. It's pathetic." "I'm not asking for anything," I said quietly. "You're not getting anything either," my mother snapped. Her voice was sharp, bitter. And suddenly, I wasn't standing outside a hotel. I was 16 again, sitting on the floor of our family kitchen, listening to my parents tell Natalie she was the golden one, the worthy one, the investment, while I was just extra. Natalie got violin lessons, ballet, tutors, brand name clothes. I got leftover uniforms and the phrase, "make yourself useful." I was the daughter who scrubbed the floors, made the meals, and learned how to silence her dreams. But I never forgot them. I never stopped working. They didn't know about the scholarships, or the night classes, or the startup I sold quietly for 7 figures just after my 27th birthday. And when I poured that money into Carter Plaza, I didn't do it to get back at them. Not then. But today, something changed. Something had to, because today I wasn't just ignored. I was erased. "You should leave before security comes," Natalie said. I stared at her, the corners of my mouth twitching. She thought she had power here. She thought she was someone. My heart hurt, not because of her words, but because I had spent years hoping she'd change. That one day, she'd call me sister with something close to love. Instead, she stood like a gatekeeper to a kingdom she had no stake in. I glanced past her shoulder at the polished glass doors, my doors. Then I made the smallest nod. My security chief moved. He stepped forward, earpiece glinting, posture firm. "Miss Carter," he said, "I apologize for the delay. Your suite is ready. Would you like me to escort your guests out of the way?" Natalie froze. So did my mother. I smiled again, but this time it reached my eyes. "No need," I said. "I think they were just leaving." My mother's face went pale. Natalie's jaw clenched. "You're the Miss Carter?" she asked, voice tight. I tilted my head. "Oh, sweetheart," I said softly. "I'm the only one." And I stepped past them into my hotel. The doors slid open silently. welcoming me like they were supposed to all along. As I walked across the marble floors, every click of my boot echoed like thunder. I didn't look back. Not yet. I wasn't finished. This was just the beginning. Because family blindness, it comes with a price. And I was ready to send the invoice. The moment I stepped into the elevator, away from their shocked faces and sneers that had turned into stunned silence, I let my hand tremble slightly. Not out of weakness, but release. I had held in the weight of their cruelty for years, wearing it like invisible chains. Today, I dropped the first link. But revenge, true revenge, needed more than a single moment. It needed memory. And I remembered everything. The elevator doors closed, and as it began to rise, my mind sank backward, back to the kitchen tile beneath my bare knees. I must have been around 11, scrubbing dried juice from the floor while Natalie sat at the counter eating strawberries dipped in sugar. "Why do I have to clean and she gets to sit?" I asked. My mother didn't look up from her book. "Because she's delicate," she said, "and you need to learn responsibility." Delicate. As if Natalie were glass and I was gravel. I was always given the duller blade, the colder room, the shorter hug. I remember the day Natalie's Sweet 16 was celebrated with a $30,000 garden party, ice sculptures, a DJ flown in from Chicago, custom invitations lined with gold foil. When I turned 16, a gift card and a store-bought cake. No party, no friends, no recognition. I blew out the candles alone. Every child wants to be seen. Every daughter wants her mother to say, "I'm proud of you." But mine never did. Instead, she looked at me like a burden, like I was just in the way. So I stopped asking, stopped begging, and I started building. I got a job the day I turned 15, after school, weekends, even on holidays. No one noticed. I applied for scholarships in secret. I stayed up until dawn teaching myself coding, design, and marketing while Natalie watched movies in the living room and laughed loudly with her friends. She got a brand new car when she passed her driving test. I saved every penny to buy a used laptop. I told myself I'd leave home at 18, and I did. Not one tear was shed when I moved out. No call, no message, just silence. But sometimes silence can be powerful. I used that silence to build something none of them thought I could. At 21, I launched my first digital platform, an event management service that went viral on college campuses. At 23, I sold it for $3.2 million. No one in my family knew. They didn't ask. They never asked about me. I disappeared in their world, but I was loud in mine. I reinvested the money, created partnerships, joined networks, and when the opportunity came to buy the old Lenox Tower and renovate it into the Carter Plaza Hotel, I did it with the kind of fire only the forgotten can burn with. I named it Carter. Not for them, but to reclaim the name that once made me feel invisible. Now it was etched in silver across a glass tower that rose 25 stories high into the Manhattan sky. The elevator reached the top floor. The penthouse doors opened to soft light, a marble foyer, and the sweeping skyline beyond glass walls. I stepped out and exhaled. Alone. But finally free. I walked over to the bar and poured a glass of sparkling water, my fingers trailing along the granite countertop. And then I opened my laptop. Time to see what Natalie was up to these days. I searched her name and wasn't surprised. She was in debt. Big debt. Her lifestyle, designer everything, constant vacations, dinner tabs the size of mortgages, was finally catching up to her. She'd recently started a lifestyle brand, Natalie Grace Living. A blog, a product line, and an Instagram full of fake smiles and filtered lies. But she was drowning. I could see it in her eyes, behind the gloss. She was looking for investors, and she was desperate. I sat back and smiled slowly. Maybe it was time to meet her again, not as the sister she mocked, but as the investor she needed. Because this time, I would make sure she remembered who I was. I wasn't the invisible daughter anymore. I was the storm she never saw coming. 3 days after that hotel incident, I made my move. Not loudly, not directly. Revenge works best when it moves quietly, like a shadow slipping into a locked room. I created a new identity. It didn't take much. A false name, a new email address, a clean corporate shell company registered out of Delaware. I became Amelia Wynn, an angel investor from San Francisco looking to support women-led lifestyle brands. I didn't need to lie about my wealth. That was real. And when Natalie's brand reached out with their pitch deck, begging for attention under the mask of confidence, I didn't rush to reply. I let her wait. Because waiting builds desperation. I knew Natalie would check her inbox every hour. I knew she would reread her own proposal and wonder what she'd done wrong. And just when she'd begin to lose hope, I replied, "Dear Natalie Grace, thank you for your submission. I found your pitch intriguing and would be open to a deeper discussion regarding your brand's potential." I could almost hear her squeal through the screen. That same night, she messaged Amelia back, full of enthusiasm, promising numbers and fake smiles. She had no idea she was writing to her sister, the sister she laughed at, the sister she blocked from walking into her own hotel. We arranged a video call. I didn't turn on the camera. Instead, I kept the voice polished, calm, neutral. "I prefer keeping things audio only," I said. "Less distraction, more focus." And Natalie? She bought every word. She gushed about her vision, her followers, her dream to become the next Goop meets Vogue. I took notes like a real investor, asked sharp questions about burn rate, inventory, marketing gaps. Natalie floundered through some of them, but I pretended not to notice. I needed her to think she had the upper hand, because what I was building behind the scenes would shake her world. That week, I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into her financial records. Credit cards, overdue taxes, pending lawsuits. The numbers were worse than I imagined. She was 2 months from collapse. She had mortgaged our parents' house to fund her warehouse. And my mother? Still in denial, still pretending everything was fine, still calling Natalie our pride. They had no idea the walls were closing in, and that I was the one turning the screws. A week later, I offered a conditional investment, a $750,000 injection, just enough to keep the brand afloat, but with one requirement. We will require a rebranding launch event I wrote as Amelia at Carter Plaza Hotel, penthouse ballroom, 1 week from Friday. Natalie nearly choked with gratitude. "This will change my life," she replied. Oh, it would. Just not the way she thought. I coordinated the event with my staff behind the scenes. No one knew Amelia and I were the same person, but I left one instruction for my hotel director. I want every inch of this event captured. Video, audio, everything. Because truth has power when it's played back. On the night of the launch, the ballroom glowed with chandeliers and candles. Dozens of influencers and local media arrived. Natalie floated around in a pale pink gown, beaming like she'd won a prize. My mother was there too, dressed in something that screamed new money, clinging to the illusion of status. They still hadn't connected the dots, until I walked in heels and a black gown, hair curled softly at my shoulders, makeup done by one of the city's top artists. When I entered the room, conversations paused. A few heads turned. And then Natalie's smile froze. She recognized me instantly, but not in the way she used to. Not as the poor, forgotten sister, but as someone. She blinked fast, trying to understand. "You," she whispered. "Yes," I said gently. "Me." My mother stepped beside her, jaw tightening. "What are you doing here?" "I believe I was invited," I said, raising the invitation card Amelia had received. "As your investor." Gasps rose around us as people began connecting the name, the hotel, the scandal unfolding in real time. "You're Amelia?" Natalie's voice cracked. "No," I said. "I'm Isabella Carter. I own this hotel. I own the holding company that was about to save your business. I own everything you've been standing on." The silence was deafening. Even the string quartet had stopped playing, and then I did what I had planned all along. I looked at my assistant, who nodded and dimmed the lights. A projector flickered on behind me, and on the giant screen, a montage of Natalie's emails, fake numbers, lies about followers, exaggerated financial reports, recordings of her bragging about manipulating investors, screenshots of her mocking people who had loaned her money. Every word, every fraud, every mask ripped off in seconds. Her empire collapsed under the weight of her own voice. People began whispering. Some walked out. A reporter raised a phone and started recording. Natalie stood frozen, her face pale, hands trembling. My mother grabbed her arm, but I saw the shift in her eyes. That old, familiar shift, from pride to shame. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time, and maybe she was. When the lights came back on, I faced them both. "I'm not here for your apology," I said. "I'm not here for revenge either. This isn't revenge. It's recognition." Then I walked past them, heels clicking like punctuation marks across the marble. Because in that moment, I wasn't the invisible daughter anymore. I was the one who made the whole house of cards fall down. And I did it with elegance, with truth, with power. The video of Natalie's public exposure went viral by morning. A guest had posted it to TikTok with the caption, "When your investor turns out to be your sister and owns the building too." It had over 2 million views by noon. The comment section was a war zone of laughter, shock, and poetic justice. People were calling me the silent architect, the revenge queen. But I didn't feel like a queen. I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Because what I really wanted wasn't attention. I wanted to be understood. The little girl who grew up begging for crumbs had finally taken back her table, but the emptiness in my chest hadn't vanished. Not completely. I watched my mother's face 100 times in the playback. That flicker in her eyes, the moment her mind shattered its own delusion. And Natalie, she tried to reach me the very next day. I didn't answer. She emailed, texted, even sent a message through one of my employees, begging to talk, begging for forgiveness, begging for money. Because without the investment, her company had defaulted on its next loan within 48 hours. 3 lawsuits followed. Then came the headlines. Her name was in the news, but not for the reason she dreamed. I could have cut off completely. I could have disappeared again. But I didn't. Because this story wasn't done yet. I invited them both, my sister and my mother, to dinner. Not in the ballroom. Not in a public event. Just the 3 of us. Private. Personal. Painful. The dining room on the 25th floor was silent when they arrived. My mother looked nervous. Her fingers curled tightly around the handle of her purse. Natalie's face was swollen, mascara barely holding back the mess underneath. They sat down, across from me like strangers. "I wanted you to see what it feels like," I began, voice calm. "To walk into a room where the power isn't in your hands." My mother said nothing. Natalie spoke first. "You made your point." I shook my head. "No, that was never the point." "The point," I said slowly, "was to show you what I built when you weren't looking, when you were too busy feeding each other praise and feeding me silence. I was invisible to you. But now I stand here and you can't unsee me." My mother finally lifted her eyes. "I didn't know." I let out the softest laugh. "That's the problem," I said. "You never wanted to know." She reached for my hand across the table. I didn't move. "I was hard on you," she whispered, "but it was for your own good." My eyes burned. Don't rewrite history to comfort yourself. I wasn't raised. I was used. While Natalie got gifts, I got chores. While she got dreams, I got duties. Natalie opened her mouth, but I raised a finger. "You can't defend it. Not anymore." I didn't come here to fight. I came here to say this. I forgive you. The words stunned even me, but I meant them. Not for their sake, but for mine. I forgive you, I said again, but forgiveness is not an invitation. I don't want a relationship. I don't want holidays or birthdays or coffee dates. What I want is peace, and I get that by not carrying you anymore. I stood up. You're free to go. They both looked shattered, but they stood, and they left. Without fanfare, without last words, just like I once did. As the elevator doors closed behind them, I sat alone at the table, a long, polished table I once wished to be invited to. Now it was mine. All of it. But I didn't need to fill it with people who never saw me. I needed only one seat. My own. The following week, I walked through the lobby of Carter Plaza with a quiet heart. No tension, no hesitation. No one whispering that I didn't belong. Because everyone knew now. I was the one who made this place possible. I passed the reception desk, where a new family was checking in. A young daughter clung to her mother's arm, eyes wide with awe. I smiled at her, and she smiled back. That little girl reminded me of the child I used to be, the one who stood at the windows of other people's castles and wondered what it felt like to be let inside. Now, I wasn't just inside. I had built the entire kingdom, but I wasn't gloating. Not anymore. I had tasted revenge. I had delivered it in a perfectly plated dish, and it was everything I imagined. But after the applause fades and the doors close behind you, you're still left with one thing: yourself. So I asked myself the question I'd never dared to before. What kind of woman do I want to be now? I went up to my office on the 24th floor. Sunlight spilled through the windows, landing gently on the name etched in silver on the door. Isabella Carter, founder and CEO. I ran my fingers across it, not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to feel the weight of every letter. Every syllable was forged in pain, in perseverance, in solitude. I had earned this. All of it. Later that day, I sat at the edge of the rooftop garden, something I had designed during renovations when no one believed it was possible. From there, I could see all of Manhattan. So many stories unfolding in tiny windows, beneath streetlights and behind curtains. So many people chasing belonging, chasing validation, just like I had. But today, I was done chasing. I had created my place in this world, and I had finally stopped needing to be loved by people who couldn't even see me. Natalie and my mother, they faded into the background now. Their voices had once been storms inside my chest. Now, they were just echoes. No power, no pain, just noise I no longer tuned into. I picked up a pen and wrote something in my journal. The girl they ignored built a world they can't enter. And I closed the book. Not with anger, not with sorrow, but with peace. Because when you stop waiting for a seat at someone else's table and build your own, you don't need anyone to pull out a chair for you. You sit proudly. And if no one claps, you clap for yourself. Because your story, it was never meant to be approved by others. It was meant to be written by you. And now that mine was, I finally felt free. Have you ever been underestimated or treated like you didn't belong by the very people who were supposed to love you most? If you had the chance to reclaim your power like Isabella did, how would you do it? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening.